Charlie, Charlie Kirky. I spot the perky. Charlie, Charlie Kirky. I just Charlie, Charlie Kirky.
Your underscore pal underscore blue 69 is the winner. Hi.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
Hobby husband is too slow.
How does a ragtag volunteer army in need of a shower somehow defeat a global superpower? How do we emerge victorious from the quagmire? Leave the battlefield waving Betsy Ross's flag higher. Yo, turns out we have a secret weapon, an immigrant you know and love who's unafraid to step in. He's constantly confusing, confounding the British henchmen. Everyone give it up for America's favorite fighting Frenchman! Taking this horse by the veins, taking red coats, whether he blood stains. And I'm never gonna stop until I make him double, burn him up and scatter the remains. Watch me engaging them, escaping them, enraging them. With the France for more funds. Come back with more guns and ships. And so their balance shifts.
We rendezvous with Rochambeau, consolidate their gifts.
We can end this war at Yorktown, cut them off at sea, but for this to succeed, there is someone else we need.
I know.
So he knows what to do in a trench, ingenuity, fluent in French, I mean. So you're gonna have to use him eventually. What's he gonna do on the bench, I mean? No one has more resilience or matches my practical, tactical brilliance. You want to fight for your land back?
I need my right-hand man back.
Yes, get your right-hand man back. You know you gotta get your right-hand man back. I mean, you gotta put the button to the letter, but the sooner the better to get your right-hand man back.
Alexander Hamilton, troops are waiting in the field for you. If you join us right now, together we can turn the tide. Oh, Alexander Hamilton, I have soldiers that will yield for you. If we manage to get this right, they'll surrender by early light. The world will never be the same. Alexander.
Forgot where the button was. I was like, is it on my stream deck? Where am I hitting? Hi, everybody. It's me, Charlie. And today is our last day of our history quiz, our history lesson. We have the quiz tomorrow, quiz test, whatever you want to call it. I'm testing your knowledge. Anyway, so today we are going over two main bits, which this song partially covered. One, the Battle of Yorktown, which was the last remaining battle of the Revolutionary War. We're skipping Benedict Arnold. We already learned about him in Drunk History. If you want to learn more, check out the playlist. But we're going to go right into Yorktown. And also, like, I found a video on the guy who was Prime Minister of England the year of the Revolution. And I was like, oh, okay, we gotta watch that. So that'll be like the last thing we watch before the preamble. And then we're donezo. So it's about an hour worth of content tonight, hour and a half. This song covers Lafayette, one of the greatest heroes of the American Revolution, a Frenchman, came over and helped us fight for our independence, and then went back home and fought in the French Revolution. Like, how fucking cool is that? What a goddamn hero. Hi, Maddie. I'm so high-pitched. Sorry. I got, like, the jitters. I don't know why. Anyway, so, I am still waiting for dinner. It's gonna be a little bit, so, we're just gonna plow right into it. I really need to work on my you know what? Sometimes I feel like my phrasing is like an episode of, like, Archer. Have you guys ever seen Archer? It was like an animated show. I'm gonna forget like all the voice actors, but like one of them is Bob's Burgers, which made it hard to watch Bob Burgers because of the transition between like hot spy guy, sad dad with mustache. There's nothing wrong with sad dads with mustache. That's like peak Charlie, like things that I'm into in people. Sad dads. Gingers.
Gentlemen,
I love Archer. Okay, yeah.
across that field are those British dogs.
Okay, so you understand what I meant. Like, it's like where they go, like, there's two things. They go phrasing, and then they go, said Ripley to the alien mother. But there's like one season where they're saying that. And that's how sometimes I feel like I accidentally talk. Like, I'm just waiting for Archer to come out and be like, phrasing.
Dogs and the German stooges.
I don't know why
you
I'm so
would take
jittery.
everything you held dear.
Oh, no, we're going right into Lafayette, and this is way too loud. Sorry, everybody.
This video is brought to you by
Scott H.
Squarespace. From
Benjamin, I think
websites
his
and
name
online
is.
stores to marketing tools and analytics,
ADK,
Squarespace
I'm
is
still
the
cleaning
all-in-one
my
platform to
van.
build a beautiful
I wish the pause button would work. I'm clicking on YouTube. Why is it not clicking? You're still cleaning your van? Good. I'm glad you finally got to it.
online presence and run your business. Check out Squarespace through the link in the description below. More about them
I'm
in a
gonna
bit.
finish this joint. Oh, I got so much weed today. It was on sale. I don't remember what it was, but it was on sale for $15 an eighth. So I picked up an ounce and a couple of rolling papers, and that worked out to be like $103. I was like, hell yeah. God bless America. God bless New Jersey. I love this country.
Sometimes history throws us a figure so dynamic it seems like they've witnessed every important event of their era. In the case of the Marquis de Lafayette, he didn't just witness these events.
Kind of like that lady who we learned about that was on the boats, where she was on like 3 different life-changing boat events. Like, wild. In her lifetime, she watched 3 different historical boats sink.
He often caused them. Born in the latter half of the 18th century, Lafayette's life reads like a spec
Oh,
script.
you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
Dorfy Doodle is too slow.
Dorothy, I was just thinking about you. Mostly because I was talking about how I love my country of New Jersey. Boats sink all the time, though. Yeah, but like we're talking about like the Titanic and was it the Britannic was the other one? I kept my streak alive during rewatch. Did you clip? Did you clip Hero Brian? I forgot to do that. I think I made like a comment about that during the stream. I was like, me or Dorothy, we got to go back and clip it. Did you see that part? That was freaking wild. I thought Blue was lying to me. I've never seen anything like that.
For an epic Oscar winner. As a teenager, he fought in the American Revolutionary War. As a young man, he spearheaded the first phase of the French Revolution before fleeing a death sentence at the guillotine. He was friends with George Washington, Louis XVI, Thomas Jefferson, and Simon Bolivar, and was instrumental in both the downfall of Napoleon and the revolution that overthrew France's last Bourbon king.
What a
In short,
badass.
Lafayette was a dude who packed a lot into his 7 decades. But while he remains famous for his role in the Revolutionary War, how much do we really know about the rest of his life? About the man who was at the forefront of not 1 but 2 French revolutions? Join us today as we peek
Damn,
inside
that's
the life of
crazy.
the Marquis de Lafayette, the man who changed the fate of both America and Europe forever.
I can't think of maybe World War II to be a soldier.
When the Marquis de Lafayette was born on September the 6th, 1757 in France, it was into an old noble family of soldiers. In fact, the Marquis de Lafayette is an aristocratic title, but since his real name was
Oh my god, he was a rich man that wanted to help the working people. What an icon.
Marie-Joseph Paul Yves Roche
A
Gilbert
class
de Motier,
traitor.
Marquis de Lafayette, we're just going to go with Lafayette for the rest of this video, because it's easier. But while young Lafayette was both pampered and connected, he learned to ride horses in the company of 3 future kings, life wasn't exactly easy. When he was barely 2, his father was killed fighting in the 7 Years' War. By the time he turned
We learned about that. Remember? We learned about that. That was just before the Revolutionary War with the taxes that had to get, well, one of the sides lost. I forget which one right now. I think the French lost. So, the British had to tax everybody to pay back for that war. And that's how we got to the tariffs, which then led to the Revolutionary War. It's all coming back full circle. I love
13 in
it.
1770, had also lost his mother and his grandfather. Still, the gigantic fortune he inherited must have softened the blow. Come 1774, Lafayette was married and a courtier at the Versailles of newly crowned King Louis XVI. But Lafayette came from fighting stock. The pompous luxury of Versailles bored him. He wanted to win glory as a soldier, to go and fight in some great war somewhere. Luckily for him, one of the greatest wars in history
The
was about to
Paladin.
blow up. On April the
No.
19th, 1775, the growing animosity between Britain and its American colonies finally exploded
thinking
when
Path
a
of
bunch
Glory.
of soldiers and local militiamen clashed at the towns of Lexington and Concord. It was the opening salvo of the Revolutionary War, often referred to as the shot heard around the world. Over in France, the Marquis de Lafayette certainly heard it. By the summer of 1777, 19-year-old Lafayette had become so obsessed with the war raging in America.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize he's so close with Louis that he was able to like go up and ask for actual help. I thought maybe he like had to like wait there for like a while to like get audience and eventually work his way up through those chains. And it's like, no, he was actually bros with them. Oh man.
That he decided to go and join in. That July, he arrived in Philadelphia, where he presented himself to the Continental Congress. The Congress took one look at this
Love
scrawny
that picture
teenager
so
with no
much.
battle experience and told him to perform an act of intercourse upon his own buttocks. At least they did, until the Marquis declared that he was willing to fight for free, at which point the calculation changed. In the summer of 1777, the war was not going well for the Americans. Smallpox was devastating their ranks. They'd only won symbolic victories as opposed to useful ones, and the British were on the verge of capturing Philadelphia. Right now, Congress would take any free help they could get, which was how George Washington.
If you want to know about the Battle of Philadelphia, there is a video in this playlist. We've just skipped it.
Washington found himself on July the 31st face to face with a rich French teenager who'd somehow been given the rank of Major General. Washington
my
had been
God.
saddled before with useless European royals who came over to fight because they were rich and looking for adventure. Invariably, they turned out to be useless even as cannon fodder. There was no reason to assume that this new one would be any different. But Washington's snap judgment would turn out to be wrong. Over the month of August 1777, Lafayette rose from being someone Washington couldn't stand the sight of to his personal favorite. It helps that Lafayette was brave in battle and a natural leader of men. It likely helps even more that both Washington and Lafayette were looking for someone to fill an emotional hole in their lives. As many have noted, Lafayette wound up becoming the childless Washington's surrogate son. At the same time, Washington seems to have filled the father-shaped void in Lafayette's life. The two became incredibly close in a matter of weeks. Where Lafayette was wounded in the Battle of Brandywine that autumn, Washington had his personal physician attend to the lad. It was the start of a long
Dorothy, is that Brandywine, New Jersey?
relationship that would hugely influence both men. It would also hugely influence the course of American history. Under Washington's tutelage, the Marquis soon bloomed into a great general. He pulled off an impossible retreat from Barren Hill and was instrumental in harrying Benedict Arnold's forces in 1781. More importantly, though, he soon became the fledgling nation's best ambassador. In 1779, Lafayette returned to France to drum up support for the American revolutionaries. Although Louis XVI didn't need much convincing that screwing with Britain was très bien, it's still impressive how much aid the Marquis returned with. In April 1780, Lafayette triumphantly reported to Washington that 6,000
That's wild.
infantry...
That's like, okay, like in comparison, that's like if Elon Musk went to Donald Trump to get something for like a side project, you know? Like that's the level of like crazy, except he used it to fight a war for freedom versus like, you know, whatever self-suck thing Elon's gonna do.
And 6 ships were on their way from France. Yet his most impressive moment of all would come in 1781. That summer, in the run-up to Yorktown, Washington ordered both Lafayette and Mad Anthony Wayne to head south into Virginia. Both their troops mutinied at the news of yet more fighting, but while Mad Anthony lived up to his reputation by executing the ringleaders and displaying their bodies, Lafayette took a different approach. He told his men they were free to go. He leveled with his soldiers, saying they were heading into danger, that many of them wouldn't make it, that the British might annihilate them all. But he also reminded them what they were fighting for, why they'd signed up to be here in the first place, what this new nation could represent. In the wake of Lafayette's speech, nearly all of the deserters returned. Lafayette rewarded them by spending his own money on new boots and blankets.
We love a high charisma stat.
They marched down toward Yorktown and into history. It was Lafayette's troops who partly was responsible for trapping Lord Charles Cornwallis at Yorktown in late July. Once Cornwallis surrendered on October the 19th, it was effectively the end of the Revolutionary War. In the aftermath of the British having their asses handed to them, Lafayette was hailed as the hero of two worlds.
High charisma, low wisdom. You think low wisdom? Oh my god, guys. Oh man. Oh man. Okay. So, hold on. I gotta switch to chat mode. Hi, everybody. I am doing the cosplay stream on Wednesday, and I'm very, very excited. And so I am going to, okay, I'm going to be wearing a costume, obviously. But I am going to be wearing a costume that you can wear in the game. So my goal is to use the stream time to try to gather all of the pieces of my costume that I'm wearing IRL to wear in the game. While I also installed a bunch of really fucking fun mods. There's one that like, so there's these Mirelurks, which are like horseshoe crabs that are mutant. And there's also like subtypes, like there's Mirelurk kings and queens and what's the lobster? Like a lobster like crawfish. I don't remember what that one. Mirelurk hunters? Anyway, when they walk, they make Mr. Crab walking noise. And so like I'm just so excited. But I built the character today and installed all the mods. That way I don't have to worry about fucking it up on stream. So I did a quick run through of the opening because I can't stand the opening. I cannot stand pre-war sanctuary. I don't care how pretty it looks. I fucking hate it. So I ran through the front and I set my stats for the game, and I'm gonna have fun with this. It's gonna be high strength. I put everything at like 6 or 5 except for charisma and intelligence, which I put at a 1. I'm gonna take Idiot Savant. Idiot Savant, for those who don't know, is a perk that allows you to get either double, triple, or quadruple experience based off of how stupid you are. I also installed a mod that's gonna let me go from I think it's like times 5 XP. So basically, like I'll be getting like 15 XP a pop off, if not at minimum. So basically, my goal is to get all the pieces of the costume, and I found it was either a Spiffing Brit video or a Many a True Nerd video, and I think it might have, I don't remember who it was, but they did this thing where they got a high charisma and a high luck. There was this baseball bat that you get at Jamaica Plains, and its hit speed is based off of your luck stat. So what I want to do, what this thing does, oh my god. What this thing does is it launches when you hit your opponent, it launches them like into into the next game. Like it's just gone. So I want to get that, but I also put on like was it like infinite ragdoll or something? It's like when you explode you go higher. It's just like it's gonna be fucking chaos. There's a few more mods I want to look for after stream tonight. I saw Spiffing Brit in the park the other day. Fun fact. Wait, like in Philly? Oh wait, no. I thought you were Dorothy because you're the same color. Damn it. Well, at least you're both not British. That's cool. We watch him like all the time. I love how like chaotic. What's a good? It's not like lawful chaotic. You're both orange on my screen. Anyway, I'm super excited for the cosplay stream. Tomorrow for the quiz, I'm thinking I'm gonna start it like right at 6. I want to give everybody time to get in here. But we're gonna be doing it with channel points, and I have everything down on a notepad. So be ready, all right? This is a good refresher episode.
Many of the states made him an honorary citizen. Returning to France, he was promoted to Marshal de Camp, or Brigadier General. It was a proud time in the Marquis's life. Not yet 25, he'd helped engineer the success of the American Revolution, at that time the most significant revolt in living memory. Little could he have known that this was just a warm-up for the main act.
Not even a buy.
In the latter half of the 1780s, France made a grisly discovery. It was broke. The royal treasury was empty. Credit lines were maxed out. In the face of a countrywide financial collapse, Louis XVI made a fateful decision. He summoned the Estates General. The Estates General was a meeting of France's three estates: the aristocracy, to which Lafayette belonged, the church, and the commoners. Generally, French kings avoided calling the Estates General. The last meeting had been in 1614, 174 years previously. But if Louis wanted to head off the brewing crisis, he had no choice. On May 4th, 1789, 1,200 representatives of the three estates convened in Paris. Among their number was Lafayette, elected as a deputy of the nobility. But while Lafayette was lumped in with all the other French fancy-pants, he wasn't just another posh twit. He'd spent years immersed in the ideals of American independence, and now he was going to bring them to France, whether his countrymen liked it or not. The Estates General officially opened on May 5th and quickly devolved from a meeting about state finances to a massive pile-on in which everyone took turns bitching about the Ancien regime. The commoners were fed up with living in convoluted, backwards France filled with pointless privileges and regressive taxation. But they were also fed up with being outvoted and pushed around by the other two estates. So on June 17th, the Third Estate's deputies declared themselves a sovereign national assembly. The whole thing was organized with the help of Lafayette, one of the few nobles who joined the assembly. The king tried to counter by having the meeting hall locked, but the assembly repaired to a tennis court where everyone took an oath not to disband until they'd forced a liberal constitution on France. And they had just the guy to write it. With help from his buddy Thomas Jefferson, Lafayette drafted the Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen, one of the most important documents ever written. In it, Lafayette set out his conception of universal rights with a strong emphasis on personal liberty. Although the assembly would redraft his work before adopting it, Lafayette's ideas still heavily influenced the final version. But the Marquis' effects on the French Revolution weren't going to stop with one document. 3 days after Lafayette presented the assembly with his draft, a Parisian mob stormed the Bastille and the Paris Hotel de Ville, a fancy name for City Hall. The morning after, representatives of Paris's 60 districts convened on the hotel and declared the creation of their own national assembly, the Paris Commune. As part of this shake-up, a citywide National Guard was formed to replace the king's men. And who could be a more natural fit as commander of the guards than the hero of two worlds? On July 17th, a reluctant Louis came down from Versailles to meet the man now heading the army that effectively controlled Paris. He was taken inside the Hotel de Ville, where someone pinned a revolutionary red and blue cockade on his chest. Lafayette saw the king wearing the cockade and had a flash of inspiration. Taking some white cloth, white being the colour of the Bourbon monarchy, he added a strip to the king's cockade. Then Lafayette and Louis XVI both went out onto the balcony, where the gathered Parisians shouted, "Long live the king." It was the birth of the tricolour, the revolutionary symbol that is still the flag of France. It was also, the Marquis hoped, the birth of a liberal republic, one in which the king was a figurehead, and the actual governing was done by middle-class business types. But the Marquis would be proven wrong on this one. Far from wanting the king as a figurehead, the people of Paris were soon going to realize that they preferred their kings without heads at all.
Good, I didn't miss that much. Although we're in the French Revolution, right? I don't know if we need to know that much more. We got past what we need. If you want to watch more, feel free. I mean, I'm gonna eat. Might as well. Never mind. Ignore me.
And just before the French inevitably start lopping off people's heads, we do want to take a moment to tell you about today's wonderful sponsor, Squarespace. With Squarespace, there's two things to keep in mind. One, maybe you've got some idea for a website or a business or a podcast or something knocking around in your mind. Well, two, the only way to figure out whether that's worth doing is to get it out there into the world. And that could be daunting because it's scary to go and pursue new things, but not knowing how to set up a website is not an excuse. There are no excuses available with Squarespace. Squarespace allows you to create a powerful website for whatever you're up to. You want to sell something online? Yes. Easily set up a store with Squarespace. You want to do a podcast? Absolutely. They handle that too. It all starts on Squarespace with a stunning template that you can customize to your heart's content, or you can start from scratch, or you can move over from an existing domain, but just take my advice. Use a template. They look great. It's easy. No excuses. And once you've gone through the easy customization process, no updates, no tech BS to deal with, none of that.
It's like that tingly feeling on the one side of your face, and you can feel it, but it's not coming. Oh, I hate it.
And Squarespace also handles all the website-y stuff.
It's like blue balling, but through your nose.
Social integrations, all of that stuff, and much more. 24/7 customer support if you get stuck. So head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/biographics to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And let's get back to it. The wheels on Lafayette's plan started coming off that same autumn. On October the 5th, a riot over bread prices in Paris turned into an army of heavily armed, very unhappy women. The next day, they marched on Versailles, some 19 kilometers distant. When Lafayette got word, he first tried to stop them, only to realize his guardsmen would mutiny if he did so. So the Marquis changed tack and rode out to the head of the angry women, nominally there to protect them, but actually wondering what the hell he was going to do. When the mob arrived, Lafayette zipped inside the palace to try and convince Louis to announce his support for the Assembly's liberal reforms. But while he was talking, the crowd invaded the palace, where they killed 2 guards and stuck their heads on pikes. The situation getting desperate, Lafayette forced the king out onto a balcony to say his piece. It was a tense moment. The crowd could have easily broken in and lynched not just Louis, but Lafayette too. Luckily, though, the plan worked. The crowd began hollering, "Long live the king," then offered to escort Louis and his family back to Paris. We say offered, but it was more like they ordered him, on the strict understanding that saying no would result in his head being stuck on a pike too. And so the royal family were escorted back to the capital and effectively imprisoned in the Tuileries Palace. But Lafayette had bought them time. Not only that, he'd bought himself influence with the mob. From now on, he was going to be at the very forefront of the French Revolution. For the next year and a half, that's exactly where Lafayette stood. As the Assembly abolished feudalism and stripped powers from the aristocracy, he was the most visible symbol of the changes. Under his watch, the bourgeoisie gained new rights. It was the mannered, liberal revolution.
That's weird because I usually feel like I hear more about like Robespierre. He was also like, first he would turn to like hero and then to like villain, right? Or like he didn't necessarily go villain, but like the crowd saw him as like a villain. Maybe he did. Maybe I'm wrong on my French history. I don't feel too confident in that.
Of Lafayette's dreams. Sadly, it was already slipping out of his grasp. The Marquis's fall from grace came on July the 17th, 1791. On that day, the Paris National Guard opened fire on a group of protesters demanding the king's resignation. 50 people were injured or killed. As commander of the guard, Lafayette's popularity plummeted. He resigned his post, had himself transferred into the army. With Lafayette sidelined, the radical elements began gaining power. By April 1792, the crazies were so innocent that France declared war on Austria, beginning a series of conflicts that would rack Europe for a quarter of a century. Sent to lead one of the 3 main armies, Lafayette returned from the front to Paris twice to denounce the radicals and plead for common sense. But no one was listening. On August the 10th, 1792, a working-class revolt in Paris overthrew the monarchy and brought the hyper-radical faction headed by Robespierre to power. Seeing which way the winds were blowing, Lafayette abandoned his post and crossed the lines into enemy territory. It was just in time too. Before news even arrived of his desertion, the Assembly declared Lafayette a traitor, effectively an invitation to come and dance with Madame Guillotine. But although Lafayette escaped with his head, his nightmare wasn't over. Arrested by the Austrians, the Marquis spent the next 5 years shunted between jails, gloomily listening as the news from France got worse. 6 months after Lafayette crossed the lines, Louis was guillotined, ending Lafayette's hope of a constitutional monarchy. Another 6 months after that, the reign of terror began. Although his former comrades in America begged for his release, there was nothing to be done. Lafayette had been sentenced to rot in a cell, and rot he would, at least for a while. Because in just a few short years, a great man would ride to the Marquis's rescue, perhaps the greatest man in European history. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte, and he would transform France's fortunes. During Lafayette's years in prison, the situation in France gradually reversed. On July the 27th, 1794, also known as
It's like a baby trying to be an adult. Like that's the face he kind of has, like a toddler with trying to live.
Thermidor Year 2, Robespierre was overthrown and subsequently guillotined. In the wake of the Thermidorian reaction, the Directory rose to power. Corrupt and reactionary, the French Directory would last a mere 4 years before it too was overthrown. But luckily for our story today, it did 2 very important things in those 4 years. The first was to promote a promising young general named Napoleon and get him to invade Austria to force an end to the war. The second was to insist any peace deal included the freeing of the Marquis de Lafayette. On September the 19th, 1797, Lafayette walked free of his Austrian prison. At first, the Marquis was like, man, this Napoleon dude is awesome. But soon, he was feeling significantly less cool about France's new hero. He was worried about Napoleon's ambition, about his lust for power. But if Lafayette thought Napoleon's ambition was a bit much now, Wait until he saw what happened next. On November the 9th, 1799, Napoleon overthrew the Directory in the coup of 18 Brumaire. In place of the Directory, he installed himself as the first consul of France. Dramatic as this was, though, Lafayette's attention was elsewhere. On December the 14th, George Washington passed away in Virginia. Having already lost his real father, the Marquis now had lost his surrogate one. This may help explain why Lafayette spent most of 1800 out of the picture. It wasn't until autumn that Napoleon tried courting the hero of two worlds. The incentive was an ambassadorship to America. When Lafayette gently sounded Napoleon out on France becoming a democracy, the reply he got wasn't encouraging. So Lafayette turned down the post and began speaking out against Napoleon. In May of 1802, he was one of the lone voices to vote against Napoleon, becoming the first consul for life, declaring, "I cannot vote for such a magistracy until public liberty has been sufficiently guaranteed." But that guarantee never came. Lafayette retired from public service that same year. Although Thomas Jefferson offered to make him governor of newly purchased Louisiana in 1803, Lafayette refused. He also refused another offer from Napoleon to be given an elevated rank in the Legion of Honor. When the first consul finally had himself named Emperor Napoleon on December 2nd, 1804, Lafayette seems to have given up on politics entirely. But while he'd stay out of the game for nearly a decade, he wouldn't be able to resist coming back. In April 1814, the War of the Sixth Coalition ended with Napoleon abdicating and being sent into exile on the island of Elba. In the wake of the empire's collapse, the Bourbon monarchy was recalled to the French throne in the portly shape of Louis XVIII. The sight of yet another fat Louis on the throne wasn't exactly music to Lafayette.
That's very much the face of a, what do you mean I have to brush my teeth? I have to eat my carrots. I know that face. Hi, Blue. Welcome back.
Soul. In his heart, he was still a child of the American Revolution and would prefer a world without royals. But when forced to choose between another Bourbon king and Napoleon's continued reign, the Marquis knew who he preferred. On March 1st, 1815, Napoleon escaped the island prison and returned to France. Louis XVIII fled and the emperor marched on Paris, kickstarting a period known as the 100 Days. Disgusted at Napoleon's resurrection, Lafayette left retirement. He took up a post in the Chamber of Deputies, determined to become a lone voice against the emperor's tyranny. Instead, he wound up helping end his rule for good. In the aftermath of Waterloo that June, Napoleon's brother came to the chamber to rally support for the emperor. Instead, he was forced to listen as Lafayette made a barnstorming speech laying the
I was playing the new Tamagotchi life game on my Steam Deck. Is that good? I think
deaths of millions at Napoleon's feet. It said many of the younger deputies hadn't realized until that moment that Lafayette, by now pushing 60, was still alive. Regardless, the speech worked. In its aftermath, Lafayette led the charge for Napoleon's second abdication. On June the 22nd, the emperor obliged. Before Napoleon went into his second exile, the Marquis went to the Tuileries Palace to thank him. There, Napoleon met him not with anger or outrage, but with a wry smile. "You got rid of me," we like to think that smile said, but now the Bourbons are back.
I'm
the
obsessed
kings
with it.
who fought so hard to rid France
I knew somebody had talked to me about it recently.
of 25 years ago. What are you going to do now? But Lafayette would soon have an answer. Although no one in 1815 could have realized it, the Marquis was destined to extinguish the Bourbon line once and for all.
And no,
The next 10 years were a decade of disappointment for Lafayette.
Blue, this is why I hate you. And you're little meddling in technology. It needs to end. I was like, oh, I'll check that on the Steam Deck. I've been looking for a video game. I haven't played my Steam Deck in forever, and I don't feel like playing Fallout 76. You're a menace.
Initially willing to give Louis XVIII a chance, he soon became convinced that the king needed to go. Starting around 1819, Lafayette began clandestinely funding liberal plots to overthrow the monarchy, but they went nowhere. By 1824, the Marquis was frustrated and all too aware that the Bourbons were catching on to his schemes. He needed a break.
Well, I mean, technically, you could set it up. You don't technically explain cat. I don't want to go to
break,
jail.
a
I
place
don't want
to
Nintendo
lie
to murk
low
me.
and recalibrate, a place where he didn't carry all the baggage that he did in France. Luckily, that place was only a boat ride away. That year, President James Monroe wrote to Lafayette asking if he'd attend celebrations of America's 50th anniversary. By now, Lafayette was the last surviving Major General of the Revolutionary War, one of the last links Americans had to their nation's birth. Lafayette accepted. On July 13, 1824, Lafayette left France to begin what would become a 13-month victory tour of all 24 US states. Wherever he went, he was feted. Across 9,600 kilometers, he was cheered, welcomed, and honored. It was a colossal outpouring of love. Towns were renamed after him. If you live in one of the dozens of places in the US named Lafayette, chances are it was named during this journey. By the end, the Marquis had seen Jefferson for the last time and visited Washington's grave. He'd even met Simon Bolivar's nephew, who was studying in the United States. When Lafayette heard the great South American revolutionary had been inspired by his exploits, he decided to write to him. And that's how Bolivar and Lafayette wound up becoming pen pals in the last years of their lives. By the time Lafayette left America on September the 6th, 1835, he was pretty much all loved out. And that was probably for the best, because France was by now a pretty unlovable place. Back in 1824, Louis XVIII had died, and the throne had passed to his brother, Charles X. But while Louis had been a royal pain, Charles was a throbbing dick. Convinced of his divine right to rule, he tore up the last shreds of French liberalism, replacing it with a hardcore Catholic, hardcore conservative, absolute monarchy. It was almost like the revolution had never happened. Charles was trying to turn back the clock to 1789. Lafayette's last great act would be ensuring that he didn't succeed. On July the 26th, 1830, Charles pushed something called the Four Ordinances, effectively a royal coup. They suspended freedom of the press, stopped almost everyone in the nation from voting, and removed the last checks of the king's power. Charles thought it would be fait accompli. Instead, it became a revolution. For Parisians, the Four Ordinances were the last straw. They rose up spontaneously, driving Charles's forces into retreat in just 3 days, known as the Three Glorious Days. But while the Marquis and his liberal friends were happy to see Charles go, they were less happy at the thought of all.
Oh, also, I downloaded Minecraft 3DS edition into my phone early this morning. I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit, Blue. That's disgusting. I think I'm gonna have a stroke.
All these angry Parisians suddenly wheeling out the guillotine. So
Crazy.
they decided to get out ahead of the revolution while they still could. Conscripting Charles's cousin, Louis Philippe, they had him ride into Paris, draped in a tricolor, right through the revolutionary crowds, all the way to the Hotel de Ville. There, awaiting Lafayette, took the future king up to the balcony, just as he had done with poor Louis XVI all those decades ago, and waving the tricolor, the two men embraced. At the sight of the hero of two worlds bestowing his blessing on the new king, the crowd went nuts. With that one kiss, Lafayette ended the July Revolution. A few days later, Louis Philippe was made head of a liberal, business-friendly monarchy with proper checks and balances. It was the moment the Marquis had dreamed of since 1789, a liberal system for France in which the king was mostly a figurehead and individual freedoms were secured. But you know what they say, be careful what you wish for. Over the next 4 years, Lafayette grew increasingly disillusioned with the July monarchy and its slow bumbling toward authoritarianism. By the end of his life, he was one of Louis Philippe's harshest critics, a constant thorn in the king's side. Luckily for the new king, Lafayette wouldn't be around much longer. On May the 20th, 1834, aged 76, the Marquis de Lafayette died in Paris. Although many mourned him, Louis Philippe refused to allow eulogies at his funeral, even having him buried under armed guard. It was a bitter end to an extraordinary life. In his 7 decades on this earth, Lafayette had repeatedly found himself at the center of events that changed world history. The Revolutionary War, the French Revolution, the downfall of Napoleon. These are all hugely significant events that would have played out very differently without the Marquis. And then there are the documents that he left behind. The modern French Constitution still incorporates the Declaration on the Rights of Man over 200 years after Lafayette wrote it. But it's not just what he did or who he met that makes the Marquis impressive. It's what he stood for. All his life, Lafayette was a tireless champion for individual liberty and freedom from tyranny. These were causes that took him to the battlefields of America, into the heart of France's revolution, even into an Austrian prison. Time after time, people asked him to sell out. Napoleon, Louis XVIII, Louis Philippe, and each time, the Marquis never wavered in his beliefs. It's often said that for evil to succeed, all it takes is for good men to do nothing. The life of the Marquis de Lafayette takes that saying to its opposite extreme. It shows what can succeed when a good man decides to do something, to stand up, to act, to be counted. When a man like Lafayette decides to do that, well, then he can change the world. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up
Alright,
button
songs
below. Don't
next,
forget to
guys, because we're
subscribe.
gonna get
Brand
to
new videos
Yorktown
several
now.
times a week, and as always,
I couldn't find
thank you for watching.
the actual live performance, so I found this animated one. But music starting, so sorry if it like. Yep. Blast. Oh no! Feels like a banger anime.
After a week of fighting, a young man in a red coat stands on a parapet.
We lower our guns as he frantically waves their white handkerchief.
And just like that, it's over. We tend to our wounded. We count our dead.
Black and white soldiers wonder alike if this really means freedom.
Not yet.
We negotiate the terms of surrender. I see George Washington smile. We escort their men out of Yorktown. They stagger home single file. Tens of thousands of people flood the streets. There are screams and church bells ringing. And as our fallen foes retreat, I hear the drinking song they're singing.
The world turned upside down. 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 Down, 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 down. Freedom for America, freedom for France.
Gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son.
we're gonna get into the battle that led to the victory. Maybe, if I did it right. Yes, I did.
On the 9th of October, 1781, George Washington personally fired the first shot at Yorktown. In doing so, he symbolically began the last great battle of the American Revolutionary War. The largest British field army in America, under General Charles Cornwallis, had entrenched itself in the town, and Washington had marched south to confront and destroy them. The siege of Yorktown was characterized by a devastating bombardment, perfect timing, and a spectacular assault. It is considered George Washington's greatest military success, and the decisive battle of the American Revolutionary War. In spring of 1781, America was in a difficult situation. Public support for the war was waning, American currency was almost worthless, and the poorly supplied and underpaid Continental Army was on the verge of mutiny. At the same time, several British armies were threatening the southern states, and Henry Clinton, the British commander-in-chief, was firmly entrenched in New York. George Washington, who had been commander-in-chief of the American troops for over 5 years, was aware of the seriousness of the situation. Quote, "We are at the end of our tether. Now or never, our deliverance must come." If the campaign of 1781 did not bring results, the American struggle for independence would be in grave danger.
Great. I haven't seen this video yet. This is awesome. I love his map.
Washington's plan for the 1781 campaign season was to attack New York, the center of British power in America. This was possible because reinforcements had arrived from Allied France the year before. The Count of Rochambeau had led around 5,500 men to America and was now ready for a joint operation at Newport. On top of that, the French managed to send a second fleet under Admiral de Grasse in the spring of 1781. It was headed for the West Indies, but if all went well, it would sail north after completing its mission and support Washington and Rochambeau. On the 22nd of May, 1781, the two generals met in Wethersfield, Connecticut, to plan the joint campaign. Washington did not want to rely on de Grasse to arrive on time and stuck to his plan to attack New York. Rochambeau, on the other hand, believed in his compatriot and thought the Allies could achieve more in the south, where General Cornwallis had united several smaller British contingents and threatened Virginia with over 7,000 men. Washington prevailed. The Allied forces reached New York in July. As expected, the British had made good use of the last 3 years and had solidly fortified the city. For over a month, Washington searched for a way to take Manhattan. He still had not found one when news arrived on the 14th of August that de Grasse had left the West Indies with 29 ships and 3,200 soldiers and was on his way to Virginia. However, the admiral announced that he would have to return to France before the onset of winter and therefore must sail again by mid-October at the latest.
Oh my god.
This gave the Allies only about 2 months to exploit their superiority.
And they did it like
Washington
just before they had to
faced probably
leave.
the most important decision of his military career. Should he remain in his strong position in New York, or risk a forced march south and put all his eggs in one basket? The risk was enormous. No one could say whether Cornwallis would still be there when the Allies arrived, and there was no guarantee the French fleet would get there in time, if it arrived at all. Nevertheless, Washington decided to seize the opportunity. Before diving into the siege, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor CyberGhost VPN, which has over 38 million users worldwide and an excellent rating on Trustpilot. A VPN is one of the most essential tools when browsing the internet. It ensures your online activity remains private and inaccessible to prying eyes. A VPN masks your IP address and routes all your traffic through a secure VPN tunnel, which makes tracking your actions impossible. But CyberGhost offers more than just privacy protection. It also unlocks access to over 40 major streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. Streaming services often restrict their catalogs based on your location, meaning certain shows or movies may be unavailable in some countries. With CyberGhost, you can easily change your virtual location. For example, this show here is not available in my country, but it is available in the United States. With CyberGhost, you can easily change your virtual location, giving you access to any content, regardless.
Okay, I couldn't pinpoint it before, but this guy sounds like have you guys ever seen like Grizzly Man? Hold on. Get tall. Grizzly. Nope, wrong thing. I'm a goof. I went into the regular bar. Go ahead and boomer me. I deserve that. Yes. Yes. This documentary is so good. I just want to play the one guy's voice. It's just for this reason.
For 13 years, Timothy Treadwell lived among
Not
the
this
grizzly
voice.
bears in the Alaskan wilderness. During that time, he shot over 100 hours of videotape. Until 2003, when he was killed by one of the bears he had sworn to protect.
Spoilers.
Well, I'm here with one of my favorite bears. It's Mr. Chocolate.
Not his
Hey,
voice.
Mr. Chocolate. He's been with me for over a decade, and he's been my good friend. Oh, he's a big bear. He's a big bear. A very big bear. Wow.
I'm so sorry. This is how you guys find out about
When you
this.
spend a lot of time with bears day after day, there's a calling that makes you want to come in and spend more time in the world.
Expedition 2001, I came here and protected the animals as best I could. In fact, I'm the only protection for these animals out here. Animals rule. Timothy conquered.
He tended to want to become a bear.
Most times I'm a kind warrior out here. Occasionally I am challenged, and in that case, the kind warrior must become a samurai.
I think he had lost sight of what was really going on. Or he got what he was asking for, he got what he deserved.
That guy is awesome.
Come here and try to do what I do. You will die. You will die.
From an
here.
event that happened like 20 years ago. It happened in 2003. So, like 23 years ago. Right? Did I math that right?
Melissa is eating her babies. Timothy, I'm getting a bad feeling about you. I can smell death all over my fingers. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals.
Now the longhorns are gone, and the drovers
They don't have any of the narrator's voice.
This is my life. This is what I do. I love it.
Geronimo's gone,
He says, if I don't come back, it's what I want.
and the lion is gone, and the red wolf is gone. Ooh, yep, ooh, yep, ooh.
It's a great movie. Highly recommend it. We've watched it here. We did a community night. This guy. Sorry, I'm like
Werner,
yelling.
Did you turn your cell phone off?
I do not have a cell phone. I don't have to turn off anything. So, but I feel okay with it, and I'm not nostalgic. You know, I just want to live and have a real conversation. with
Sounds
a
like
real
that a
person.
little bit. Sorry, side tangent over.
Regardless of your location. Plus, you'll never have to worry about being blocked from your favorite shows when you travel. Security is a top priority for CyberGhost.
Like a younger version.
They have a strict no-logs policy, meaning they never track or store any user data. With servers across 100 countries, you'll always have a fast, reliable, and secure connection. CyberGhost is incredibly user-friendly,
Jesus, when
works
did it get to
seamlessly
7?
across all major platforms from Windows, iOS, and Android to gaming consoles, Linux, and smart TV. You can try CyberGhost VPN risk-free with their 45-day money-back guarantee. Plus, by using my link, you can get CyberGhost at an incredible 84% discount, just $2.10 a month, with 4 months free.
Such a long ad break. Mostly my fault.
The Allies marched off on the 19th of August.
Around 4,000 French soldiers and 3,000 Continentals moved south overland, while Admiral de Barras transported supplies, material, and artillery along the coast in 9 ships. Under no circumstances could Clinton find out what the Allies were up to. Otherwise, he could have sent reinforcements to Virginia or warned Cornwallis. Washington, therefore, tried to convince him that New York was still his target. He leaked some forged letters to Clinton, had his troops feign preparations for a siege, and chose the march route as if he wanted to attack New York from the south. His plan worked. It took a long time for the British to realize what was happening. Meanwhile, Cornwallis marched northeast, closely followed by a much smaller American force under the Marquis de Lafayette, a French officer who had joined the Continental Army. Cornwallis was tasked with building a fortified base and damaging the rebels' economic and military infrastructure in Virginia. Lafayette harassed the British where he could and followed them as they turned east in late July. On the 30th of August, he reported to Washington that the enemy went round to Yorktown. Cornwallis did precisely what Washington had hoped for. The Allies quickly continued to Head of Elk, where they scraped together all available boats and embarked for Jamestown.
Okay, wait. Hold on. I do want to lay some other information down here.
All available boats.
This area right here is part of the Appalachian Mountains. This is like really high, very dense woods and mountains, and there's some cliffs and caves and caverns and all kinds of stuff. And so going further inland would not behoove anyone. And so it would either be go back up to Baltimore or go down more south. So it's just like, and there's more water here, which is a better exit. So that would make that makes sense versus like going into the mountains.
And embarked for Jamestown.
Especially if you're like doing giant like lineup formation.
De Grasse reached the Chesapeake Bay in late August. He immediately dispatched more transport boats to Head of Elk, sent his troops to help Lafayette pin down Cornwallis at Yorktown, and block the bay with his ships. Meanwhile, Clinton sent Admiral Thomas Graves with 19 warships to Virginia to put the French to flight. His squadron overtook de Barras just off the Chesapeake Bay and approached the estuary on the 5th of September. The British assumed de Grasse had left at least half of his fleet in the Caribbean, and that the 19 ships would easily suffice to secure control of the bay. Graves was stunned when 24 ships of the line and 5 frigates emerged from the Chesapeake Bay and formed up for battle. Soon, a storybook naval battle raged, allowing de Barras, who had also arrived in the meantime, to slip into the bay unhampered. According to the historian John
Double-sided tape was stuck to the inside of the box it came in. That's rough, buddy.
Furling, the Battle of the Chesapeake technically ended in a draw, but was strategically decisive. Graves was forced to admit that he was inferior to the Allied fleet and withdrew to New York, giving up any chance of supporting Yorktown by sea.
Gone.
Washington, who had briefly separated from his troops to visit Mount Vernon, his home, which he hadn't seen in more than 6 years, reached Williamsburg on the 14th of September. He was greeted as if he had already won the war. The French gave a banquet, and the tempestuous Lafayette, who had not seen his commander-in-chief for almost a year, quote, absolutely kissed him from ear to ear.
And remember, Lafayette was basically Washington's, son.
There was good reason to celebrate. For the first time in Washington's military career, everything had gone entirely according to plan. The French had actually arrived. Cornwallis was where he was supposed to be, and almost all the British troops in the south were sitting in a heap. The chances of inflicting a crushing defeat on them were better than ever. While the Allies celebrated, Cornwallis realized he was trapped. Although his officers urged him to break out as long as he only had to deal with Lafayette's troops, he decided to stay. After the Battle of the Chesapeake, it was unlikely that support would come from New York, but Cornwallis still hoped to ride the siege out.
Wait. Maybe I missed it. Does he think the boats are gonna come from New York? Because they tried to. Oh man, wouldn't that be so funny if like the last correspondent was like, they're like, we're on our way, and then they hadn't heard anything since then?
He had enough supplies, knew the French fleet would have to abandon its blockade sooner or later, and hoped Clinton would find another way to help him. He was also aware that the war was at a turning point. According to Furling,
I should just
quote,
listen instead of
if
pausing.
a worst-case scenario materialized, he did not wish to be saddled with blame for Britain's failure. On the 17th of September, Cornwallis wrote to the High Command in New York, quote, I do not think myself justifiable in putting the fate of the war on so desperate an attempt as an attack on Lafayette's troops. 3 days later, Washington sent an advance guard to Gloucester to prevent the British from leaving Yorktown in that direction. Now it was too late to break out. Shortly after, the last transportation ships with French troops, artillery, and siege equipment arrived in Jamestown. Now 7,800 French soldiers, 3,100 militiamen, and 8,000 Continentals were ready to crush Cornwallis and his 9,000 redcoats. On the 28th of September, they marched the last few miles to Yorktown. The siege had begun. The Allies' biggest concern was the ticking clock. During a visit to his flagship, Washington and Rochambeau convinced de Grasse to stay until the end of October.
I don't know why I giggle every time he says it like that.
But he refused to stay a single day longer. This was a problem because once the French ships were gone, the British could again reach their troops at Yorktown by sea and easily resupply and reinforce them. So Washington had only 6 weeks to complete his mission, and it was not an easy one. Cornwallis had fortified Yorktown carefully. Since they had established themselves in Yorktown in August, the British troops had built several outposts. Most importantly, a chain of 7 fortified positions and 6 batteries. In addition,
It looks like the United States of America. Look, here's Florida. Here's where Texas would be. California, Oregon, Dakotas and Montana, Minnesota, the Great Lake region. This up here would be Maine, and here's the East Coast. That's what it's going to look like after global warming.
well-protected gun emplacement at Gloucester Point, a promontory on the opposite bank, dominated the River York.
Florida accurately
Rochambeau,
gone.
the only Allied commander with siege experience, immediately realized that the fortifications were too strong to be overrun, and time was too short to starve Yorktown into submission. The only option was a formal siege. This involved approaching the enemy using trenches to dig him out, shovel by shovel, as one American soldier put it. This was a very safe but also very slow method to conquer a fortified place, and time was of the essence. On the 29th of September, the Allies moved closer to the defensive lines. The British greeted them with a thunderous barrage, but caused only minor damage. The following night, Cornwallis withdrew all his troops from the outer fortifications, except for Fusiliers Redoubt and Redoubts number 9 and 10. In doing so, he gave up a lot of ground and valuable time, but he also tightened his lines. This was a risk, but it made sense, because now the defenders only had to occupy the
Also, another geography fact. This area right here is basically swamp, marsh, muck, whatever you want to call it, and a lot of dense woods. Like, this is not that flat of an area. It's very, very icky out yonder.
defenses next to the town, which meant they could save their strength. The Allies immediately took possession of the abandoned positions and used them to build their own fortifications. On the 5th of October, the Allies opened the first parallel. When the French led a divisionary attack against Fusiliers Redoubt under the cover of the dark, rainy night, the Americans opened the trenches with a small ceremony. Barely half a kilometer from redoubts number 9 and 10, Washington did the honors and, quote, struck a few blows with a pickaxe, that it might
Yeah, the Brits fought the worst kind of war.
be said General Washington, with his own hands, first broke ground at the
Yeah,
siege of Yorktown.
is it the kind on home turf?
The American troops then set to work, closely guided by the experienced French engineers. Night after night, the men toiled away in the sun-baked Virginia soil until all the gun emplacements were finally completed on the 9th of October. Again, there was a ceremony in which Washington personally put the match to the first gun. When his deadly salute faded, almost 100 guns joined in, generating a near-splitting noise. The bombardment
We're all gonna get shell
had
shock.
begun. Over the next few weeks, almost 3,600 shells rained down on tiny Yorktown every single day.
Where they are used to rolling hills and fields of Europe, not the wildlands of America. Oh yeah, the home turf advantage. It's the same thing that happened with America versus Vietnam. The Vietnamese had home turf advantage. They knew what they were doing. Similar to like the Minutemen in the American Revolution. But yeah, they this is not like farmland in this area at all. Like it's very hard to have a lot of farmland on this coast, especially because this area gets hit a lot with hurricanes. That's why we have such nice beaches on the East Coast, is because there's basically like the hurricanes keep forming these barrier islands, and over like millennia, they turn into these giant land masses, but they're just big sandbars that people build their houses on. But this area is either very sandy or it's very swampy, and Maryland and Virginia at this time are very, very swampy. That had only been settled for a few decades by colonists. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, they they weren't having a good time in
Their
the South.
effect was enormous. Within a very short time, rubble and corpses
It's like invading Russia in the winter. You just don't do it.
were strewn everywhere. The harbor was a mess, and there was hardly any cover left. Cornwallis had to retreat to a simple earthen bunker, and many of his men only survived by hiding in semi-collapsed cellars or taking cover under riverbank overhangs. While conditions in the town became more precarious every day, the trenches inched ever closer. On the 14th of October, the Allies began building the second parallel, which would only be fully effective when it stretched all the way down to the river. However, two obstacles prevented this: redoubts number 9 and 10. To complete the second parallel, these two outposts had to be stormed first. This was a risky task, as the massive earthen fortifications, about 130 meters apart, were surrounded by muddy trenches, fronted by several rings of abatis, a barrier of tree trunks and sharpened branches. The defenders had entrenched themselves behind sturdy palisades and stood ready with their weapons loaded and bayonets fixed. The assault troops were in for a bloody fight. After dusk, 400 French soldiers advanced against number 9, and the same number of Americans against number 10. They waited in the trenches until the French began a divisionary attack on the Fusiliers' redoubt, and then silently approached the redoubts. The men were fully aware that they were about to enter the last and decisive fight of this battle, perhaps of the entire war. Their weapons were not loaded, but their bayonets were fixed. They had almost reached the entrenchment when a guard spotted them and sounded the alarm. Suddenly, loud orders echoed through the air, and signal rockets cast a flickering light on the scene. The two assault parties reached the redoubts almost simultaneously. The French laboriously worked their way through the entrenchment, making slow progress at first and suffering heavy casualties. Despite all obstacles, they fought their way to the trench, broke through the palisades, and stormed up the earthen rampart. By the time they entered the redoubt, they had suffered 15 dead and 77 wounded. Still, they were clearly superior in numbers, and the garrison immediately laid down their arms. At number 9, the Americans had their sappers destroy the entrenchment before advancing. They then surrounded the redoubt and attacked from all sides simultaneously. After a short battle in which both sides fought fiercely with bayonets, fists and tools, redoubt number 10 was in Allied hands as well. With these obstacles eliminated, nothing could stop the Allies from completing their second parallel and moving closer to the city. Recognizing the desperate situation, Cornwallis ordered a daring foray for the next night. Under darkness, 350 hand-picked soldiers launched an assault against the advanced Allied positions. Thanks to the element of surprise, they managed to quickly destroy several guns, but then failed to gain a foothold. After a short while, a French unit made an appearance and drove them back to Yorktown. It was the first and only sortie of the entire siege. The next day, the mood in the Allied camp was almost boisterous. The French and American gunners competed against each other, vying for the best shot and greatest damage. The other side found this less amusing. For Cornwallis and his men, quote, there was nothing to be seen but bombs and cannonballs raining down. Nevertheless, the defenders did not admit to defeat. After dark, Cornwallis tried to escape the trap. He ordered his men to cross the York and evacuate to Gloucester Point, but the attempted retreat did not get far. When about a third of the troops had reached the other shore, a violent storm swept over the river and prevented any more men from crossing. This
God, the same thing happened at Thermopylae with the Athenian fleet too. Oh. And oh God, you love to see it.
failed attempt at escape clearly bears the marks of a general who knew he was defeated and would soon have to justify his actions before a court-martial in England. Even if the river crossing had succeeded, the British would have had little chance of breaking through the Allied blockade. On the morning of the 17th of October 1781, the Allied barrage was particularly dense. A deafening artillery orchestra played for 3 hours, until at about 10 a.m., an officer waving a white rag appeared on the defenses. He was blindfolded and led to Washington's headquarters, where he presented a letter with Cornwallis's terms of surrender. Negotiations began shortly afterward. Both sides sought a quick agreement. Washington would not risk his long-anticipated victory with minor details, and Cornwallis knew he could not expect any more from his men. On the 19th of October, they both signed a surrender treaty. Over 8,000 of Cornwallis's men became prisoners of war, and the artillery was handed over to the victors. Thus, the last operational British field army in America ceased to exist.
Then the lesson is done.
The last major battle of the American Revolutionary War was decided. With the siege of Yorktown, the main fighting of the war ended, and the British government was forced to enter negotiations to end the conflict. The news spread like wildfire. The young American nation rejoiced, and one soldier observed that, quote, every American present threw his cocked hat up in the air and shouted, "America is ours."
All right. Technically, second to last video. I can't wait. This has been super fun.
1770. Great Britain is the mightiest empire in the world. Britannia rules the waves.
Be good? Okay. This has been super fun. I love getting back into our lesson plans, but I'm kind of over the American Revolution. Like, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, which will be queer history in America.
Britannia is also in crippling amounts of debt. The British are spending over half of their national budget on interest payments. No country on
No, not the volume.
Spends even half that much. Things had gone from bad to worse in 1754 when George Washington... London, 1770. Great Britain is the mightiest empire in the world. Britannia rules the waves.
I'm not touching anything anymore.
Britannia is also in crippling amounts of debt. The British are spending over half of their national budget on interest payments. No country on earth today spends even half that much. Things had gone from bad to worse in 1754 when George Washington went over to talk with the French about maybe getting the hell out of British territory, and France said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you think you should own this land. Why didn't you say so? We'll just give up this entire area we discovered and charted. We'll pack up all of our businesses and hand over all our military investments." Thus beginning the very expensive French and Indian War. This war was a huge win for Britain's North American colonists. The French were completely kicked off the continent. All of Canada fell under British domain, and American settlers were free to expand as far west as the Mississippi River, whether there be Native Americans there or not. Britain, who paid for the whole operation, wants to see the colonists chip in financially and passes a bunch of taxes on the American colonies, who erupt in cries of no taxation without representation.
Oh, this is the best end summary I could have wrapped this series up with. Damn, I'm so good at this.
So things in America are looking a little bit iffy, but it's fine. At the moment, Spain seems like a bigger problem than America, and a bigger problem than that is the debt. So when the time comes to pick a new prime minister in 1770, that's the public's biggest concern, and King George III knows just the guy. Meet Lord North, a member of King George's Privy Council and his personal friend. Lord North is a lot of things. He's well-educated and quick-witted. When he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, he started making a lot of good progress on paying off the national debt without even raising taxes by instituting a national lottery. He's firm on America. Some people in Parliament were saying, "Our American brothers are ill-tempered, but that is the fault of our own injustices. Let us sheathe our sword in its scabbard, not in the bowels of our countrymen. Colony's rights." My good sir, a colony's right to what? To representation. Okay, yes, but if we give them representation, they'll vote not to be taxed, right? My friends, before America can learn to love us, she must learn to fear us. Grr! Prime Minister, the Americans pay for their citizenship. They deserve representation. Let me put this into terms you can understand. Do you watch Disney Plus? Netflix? You pay for Netflix every
Is this gonna turn into an Incogni ad? I swear to God.
month without fail, and suddenly the office is gone. They still have it, but now that show is a privilege you only get for living in the right country. That's how the world works. Just because you pay for a service doesn't mean you get to use it, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I use private internet access. PIA is a virtual private network.
God damn it.
It reroutes your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel, changing your digital location.
Excellent transition into an ad. 10 out of 10. I was too distracted by the British voice acting.
And letting you access the entire streaming library you paid for. Do you mean The Office, Rick and Morty, Friends, Always Sunny? It's all there. Let freedom ring. Sign up for just $2 a month at piavpn.com/historyabridged and get 4 months free. You'll also get access to enhanced privacy and security with PIA's powerful encryption and no logs policy. Thanks to PIA for making this video possible. But more than anything, Lord North is a big ol' people pleaser. Parliament had gone through 6 different prime ministers in the 1760s, so here's a guy who everybody likes. He's going to listen to everybody's ideas and serve the will of Parliament, and things will finally be stable. Or at least they would have been if Lord North had lived at a different point in history. Now, with reference to our finances, the gentleman will consider... Sir, we accidentally shot 11 Americans.
The Boston Massacre.
My friends, we may have to table the debate on finances today. Tensions in Boston over Britain's taxes had led to a crowd of a few hundred people harassing British troops with clubs and stones, which led to somebody opening fire on the crowd. But North had an answer to this. Among other actions, Lord North asks himself, what is at the heart of this issue? What would the colonists do if they had representation? The answer, of course, cut taxes. He leads Parliament in repealing all of those various taxes that had upset the colonists so much, except for a small tax on tea. Not much, just a little token to remind the Americans their representation means diddly. Problem solved.
And remember, why was the tea tariffed? British tea was not tariffed. Tea from other locations or from other dealers was tariffed. So, like, if you had, like, American smugglers bringing in tea from a ship they robbed, that was tariffed. But if you had, like, British ships, that was not tariffed. I hope I'm explaining that right.
Of course, but for 3 years, it looked like things in America were starting to simmer down. Then, in 1773, Lord North would step on a diplomatic landmine. You might have heard of the East India Company, the private company in London that owned all of India. They were going through tough times, but they were definitely too big to fail. So in a stroke of genius, Lord North passes the Tea Act. Instead of going through London, the East India Company can sell their tea directly to British colonies. He even cut the tax on tea to just 3 pennies. The result? The company is saved, Americans
I need to keep my mouth shut.
get way cheaper tea, and everyone is happy. Good news, colonists! Tea is super cheap now! Oh no! Stop! There's 10,000 pounds of tea in that tea! What Lord North hadn't counted on was the fact that for the last 3 years, the Americans weren't drinking British tea. They were drinking Dutch tea brought in by smugglers because it was cheaper. But now that British tea was cheaper, that meant the smugglers would be driven out of business, and the Americans would have to actually pay the tea tax, which again was still cheaper, but not very democracy. North is shocked, and frankly,
It's very American to stand by the principle of it, you know, like, listen, I could buy the cheaper tea, but you're a fucking asshole, and it's the principle of it. That is a very American trait. Petty.
offended that the American colonists reacted so poorly to his thoughtful gift, and so he issues some new acts. He shuts down Boston Harbor until Massachusetts pays back the cost of all that tea they spilled, and to make doubly sure they comply, he replaces all of their elected officials with appointed ones and tells them, "You can have your democracy back when you're ready to use it responsibly." Is what we'll tell them, eh? This was supposed to put Massachusetts in timeout and scare all of the other colonies into behaving. Instead, the colonies all got together and formed a Congress. Okay, we need to make Britain undo all that stuff it just did. Remember, there are no bad ideas. I propose we boycott all British goods. Yeah, I'm liking it. Good stuff. We should form a militia. Yeah, just in case. Ooh, militia. Okay, I'm really feeling it. What if we got representation? Huh? That's what this has been about, right? What if we worked with Britain to create our own parliament with our own
Boo, this guy stinks.
representatives? Okay, let me see a show of hands. No, I'm sorry, that's a bad idea. As far as I can tell, this was the only time the American colonies seriously considered trying to solve the question of taxation without representation by getting representation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, the British Parliament received word that their colonies had united together and were getting militias ready, just in case. And they have to make their own call. What did I tell you? Huh? What did I tell you? Look, we can still fix this, but I'm telling you, this is our last chance. We sign this. We declare that we'll never send...
Who is that face? Whose face is this?
troops in peacetime, and we'll never tax them unless we get their consent. Interesting. Show of hands. Okay. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but we're gonna do my thing instead. His thing was also not to expand the number of seats in Parliament, which, am I crazy or why did no one ever suggest this? His thing was to declare Massachusetts to be in open rebellion, and that any colony who contributes to the defense of the empire, cough cough put down the rebellion in Massachusetts, will be relieved of all taxes and duties. North's proposals were too little and too late. Blood was spilled in the first battle of the Revolution in April 1775, and the colonies were officially united. There was technically one last chance for peace. The U.S. delivered a petition saying they were still open to working with Britain under the right conditions, but it arrived in London at the same time as an intercepted letter from American founding father John Adams talking about how pointless that peace offering was and how it was never ever going to happen in a million years. So Lord North and King George were not particularly inspired. So war was happening, and Lord North was not cut out for war, and he knew it. He actually went to King George asking to resign, but King George said, "What? Buddy, hey, come on. If you quit, you'd be replaced with somebody I don't like, and my heart would be broken forever. You can't do that to old Georgie. So North stays in office. His first attempt at resolving the situation was a peace conference in 1776, but by the time it got filtered through everybody who wanted a say, the only terms Britain could offer were, "Boy, have I got a deal for you. You won't regret this. It's, we can pardon you for treason and put everything back the way it was at the start of the war." What do you say? Things were not going North's way. In 1777, he received word that the Americans won an all-important battle at Saratoga, proving to the world that they could win this thing. North is afraid that France smells blood in the water. The French, of course, were just as deep in debt as the British, and another war would decimate their finances. But...
Your Majesty, we mustn't. Turgot, who am I? The King of France, Your Majesty. Correct. And if there is one thing that I share with each and every one of my forefathers for the last 1,000 years, the very essence of what it is to be French, it is this. With God as my witness, when I see an opportunity to stick it to the British, I am going to take it.
Thank you. Your Majesty, France is going to declare war. If we ever hope to fly our colours over the 13 colonies again, we have to be prepared for some major concessions. Nope. I am clearly not the man you want for this job then, Your Majesty. I shall pack my things and nope. I'll do my best. It was said of North that he would do more to please anyone who withheld their friendship than he would do for his actual friends. Sure enough, France joins the war, and in 1778, North arranges another peace conference. He is finally authorized to offer everything America wanted in 1775. But as usual, it was too little, too late. America in 1778 will settle for nothing less than independence. And besides that, the whole thing turned into a complete fiasco. He sent a young and inexperienced diplomat who first tried and failed to bribe some congressmen, and then spouted off enough anti-French remarks to get challenged to a duel in the middle of negotiations. The British Army, meanwhile, has to be diverted to the Caribbean to stop the French from taking over those colonies.
20 streams? Holy crap.
Which, don't tell anyone, but they might have been a little more important.
Hi, Javi.
Lord North spends most of the war having a nervous breakdown. He's constantly going back and forth between, Parliament is leaving me, I'm deserted, disgraced. If Your Majesty wishes it, I will serve wherever you see fit. I've brought ruin to king and country! I told you I wanted to quit, so don't blame me for doing a bad job. I'm doing a terrible job! I can't take the pressure anymore! The other shoe is gonna drop, everyone will know I'm a fraud, and I'll be kicked out of office, and my friends will abandon me. They'll be right to abandon me, and you're going to hate me, and... Deep breaths, deep breaths. If you won't fire me, then kill me. We still have one general that's winning, right? Cornwallis? Yeah. As long as Cornwallis is fighting, then it's not over. Cornwallis was defeated in 1781. Oh, God. It's all over. North tried once more to resign. Despite the wishes of King George, Parliament finally sued for peace with America and passed a vote of no confidence in Lord North. North's worst fears had come to pass. America was given complete independence and extremely favorable terms. Lord North's legacy was ruined, and he's remembered to this day as one of the worst prime ministers of all time. But he was finally free of the fear that held him back. He kept his seat in Parliament, and when the time came to promote someone new to power, North made the call to support the choice he thought was right. George III told him, "Him! Northie, how could you do this to me? If you pick him, I won't be your friend anymore. I won't be your friend anymore." But North told him, "Oh, really? Well, tough." George III tended to his kingdom and his large brood of children. Known affectionately as Farmer George, he watched over the empire's rebound with a keen eye. until a mysterious illness knocked him off his rocker. And as for those rascally Americans, they went on to lay the bedrock of a new nation. America expanded its horizons and went on to eclipse Great Britain as the world's leading superpower. And we can all point to Lord North and laugh.
It's that guy's fault. Fuck, I hit the wrong button. All right, everybody. That is where we're going to wrap the American Revolution. Well, hold on. Got technically one more video. Do I want to force you guys to watch the preamble? Not really. All right. I think we're good. If you want to continue learning about it, I have some stuff about the Constitution, which is the bedrock structure of law that forms our country's basis. But I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. So we're gonna move to gaming. I'm gonna switch to Minecraft. I'm gonna get out of History Charlie mode. Tomorrow is the quiz. Starting at 6:30. Wednesday is the cosplay. I covered everything. Thank you guys. I hope you've been enjoying lesson plan. But yeah, the next one I'm gonna do is on queer history in America. Hopefully leading right into June. I gotta see how quick I can put it together. I might have too much stuff on my plate. I'm starting to feel a little anxious about everything. I was trying to play this inside the other night. I must have had to like turn it off and on again like 50 times. It's a cozy mode. Maddie, if you're still there, how's your your van? Sun's still up. I turned off the lights. I was like, oh damn. Good, I'm done now. I'm so proud of you. Excellent job. Excellent, excellent job. Loud. I also do love that you're still there. All right. Oh, right. I had gone over here and killed that pig. But I need hide. I don't know if I want to keep. I did promise exploring. So exploring I will do. Have to go get more of my meat. Sometimes the Minecraft loud. Who did you promise a submarine to? I promised a submarine to somebody? Are the boys fighting over the submarine in the bathroom? These are my best guesses. Or do you mean submarine as in like a sandwich? Because I'd like to promise myself an Italian sandwich, Italian hoagie right now. Thought that's what you said. I must have misheard. Did I say something about a submarine? Oh, I'm gonna go underground. I forget what I said, but I think it involved me going. I promised everybody I would go down into the caves and stuff. Exploring, not submarine. I got there. I should find some. Fuck it. That is. I was going to say you should make it a yellow one if you promised it would. Wait, sorry, my eyes hurt. It would be yellow if you promised it to one of the Brits. Oh, no. No, I didn't promise any submarines to anybody. Not yet. I'm gonna make a sword. Exploring makes sense. Yes, it makes definitely more sense in this. Is that a zombie over there? Damn it. Damn it. I'm gonna need more sticks, aren't I? Oh, fuck. Why is there a creeper right there? Oh, God. I don't even want to turn around. I'm fucking so scared right now. Okay. Perfect. They only spawn at night and they don't die in the light like zombies. Now I'm scared to go down to the cave already. Kenny! Hi, Kenny. How are you? Are you ready for the quiz tomorrow? Ah! That was awful. What's up? So far, so good. Just got off work. Nice. Going to the gym. I'm never ready for quizzes. That's fair. Actually, yesterday when I was bumbling around, goofball came upon... Oh. I'm already scared. I'm such a fucking baby. A bat. Where does this one come out? I'll be taking this coal. Thank you very much. Oh man, I went to the chiropractor today. She snapped my neck. Ugh. It went off like a machine gun. It was wild. She was laughing at me because of the noises I was making. Cause like, I'm the kind of person when like I work out, like I have to kind of like exhale with a noise. You know, I'm never quiet is the best way to summarize myself. So she was laughing at me. Oh, thank God. Excellent. Oh, I might up there. So many like little pockets. There's more on this side. What an excellent little spot. Oh, and there's a cow. I need to kill that cow. I need hides. Oh, are those pumpkins? Oh my God, they're pumpkins. Oh my God, this is a way cooler cave. Dark. I'm gonna go now. Goodbye. No, thank you. Oh, I'm freaking out. I don't know if I'll be able to get back to my... I'm gonna get blown up. Okay, did not get blown up. What to make it? Shit. Saplings? Grassy. think what I might do is try to plant some trees on the top of this floating rock. Creeper down there. When did they go away? Ah! How far will he chase me? Oh, not that far. Those things give you like twigs. Lots of wolves. Do I even get saplings that way? How do you know when you have enough wood? I guess, like, get all the wood. Like, as much wood as I can, like... Oh, okay, there's a sapling. Wait, what did I need? An axe? Something else? Or torch? Oh, there's a cave right... No, I think I just mined that out. I had a map. Need redstone. It was like that path last time. Oh, wait. I was gonna plant all those things on my... God, I forgot. I was gonna put all those things on top of my house. That's not how... Not be bad. This... Second floor. Oh, I should have made a hoe. Shucks. Cave system 2, right over there. Oh, that thing's gonna be so fun to explore. Sheep.
I drink, and I know things.
Dorfadiddle would like you to drink something.
Ow. Where'd the sheep go? Sorry, that was fucked up. Oh, there's my house. Oops. Excellent, excellent. Just as I intended. Wonderful. Put a door there. Have enough wood to make. It's gonna be a different color than my other door, though. Are you mining some craft? I am. Not very well. Take your drink. I did take a drink. I took a drink. This is an awesome base you got so far. Thank you. Still working on it. I took my drink. Rewind the VOD. Don't mind me, I just carry this door with me wherever I go. Every time I get out of bed, I get whacked. I need a hoe. Rods. We can just bully you into hydrating and being healthy. I'm doing pretty good on that. I'm down like 5 pounds since January. And I've been maintaining since last year. So, fuck off. What is it? Fuck off, witch. Be gone with ye. A snowball? Is this one too close to this one and that's why it's not growing? Can bring the jack-o'-lanterns with me? Insane. Pumpkin. Oh, I wasn't sure if those were different layers.